In a deserted area, there was a dilapidated factory that clearly showed no one had been there for many years. Inside that factory, the sound of someone's breathing could be heard. With no other noise around, those faint breaths echoed lightly throughout the factory. There was a girl tied up. Her hands and feet were tightly bound with chains, and she was hanging in the air in very poor condition. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Blood was dripping from her hands and feet, or rather from her entire body. Additionally, there were many marks of beating on her body. Some of them were old, while others were fresh. It seemed that acid had been poured on her face, which had disfigured it completely. It looked like she had been tortured for a long time, beaten like an animal. Just then, the main door of the factory opened, and one after another 4 cars drove in. First, some uniquely dressed bodyguards got out of the first car and opened the door of the car standing behind them. As the car door opened, a boy stepped out, who looked to be around 28 years old. He was wearing a white 3-piece suit. He stepped out of the car with great swagger, buttoning the front of his coat, and walked to the other side of the car. The door opened, and he extended his hand forward. In no time, a delicate, soft hand came into his grasp, and he held it firmly. After that, long legs of a girl wearing expensive heels were visible from the car. The girl was wearing a black mini dress that was slightly above her knees. She had left her hair open. She looked to be around 26 years old. With hatred in her eyes, she looked at the girl lying in a half-dead state in front of her. Then, both of them laughed like devils, feeling disgusted at the sight. The girl who had stepped out of the car walked up to the girl in front of her with great style and grace. The boy standing there placed his hand on the girl's waist and stood beside her. They were very close to each other, both looking at the girl as if she were a pile of filthy garbage. Then the boy signaled to the bodyguard standing behind him. Upon receiving the signal, the bodyguard stepped forward and unlocked the chains binding the girl. With that, the girl who was tied up suddenly fell to the ground. The impact of the fall made her scream, but no one standing there seemed to care. Then suddenly the girl standing there pretended to show concern and said, "Don't you understand? Look, poor thing got hurt because of you. Come on, apologize immediately." Then looking at the girl who had fallen, she said, Oh, Siya, what happened? How did you suddenly fall down like this? Come on, I'll help you get up." Saying this, she grabbed her hands and began to dig her sharp nails into them, causing the girl to scream. She started shouting loudly. The other girl, shaking her hand off, stood up. She extended her hand to the bodyguard behind her. The bodyguard quickly handed her a clean handkerchief, which she used to clean her hands, as if she had just touched something filthy. Then, the girl walked towards the car, took out a small box, and stood in front of the girl. Taking out a sweet from the box, she forcefully shoved it into the girl's mouth, saying, "Here, eat the sweet, Siya. Do you know what this sweet is for? How would you know, right? You were relaxing abroad with stolen money. You think I did nothing, I swear on your mother." The girl lying on the ground, Siya, said nothing, just looked at her with a gaze full of hatred. The other girl then said, "No worries, let me tell you. After all, I do mean something to you. This sweet is in celebration of the fact that today I married my fiancé. Sorry, you're never to be fiancé. Also, you know, your own mother who gave birth to you. Today she considered me more than her sons and transferred all her property in my name. Finally, what was mine, I got it." Then, making a naive face, she continued, "Siya, I got married today. Aren't you going to give me a gift? Come on, no worries, I'll give myself a gift on your behalf. You just have to sign it. Just simple. You'll do this much for me, right?" Saying this, she pointed to the boy in the white suit. The boy immediately handed her a pen and some documents. The girl took the documents and turned towards Siya lying in front of her, saying, "Come on, quickly sign this." Meanwhile, Siya, who had been forcibly fed the sweet, suddenly widened her eyes at the sight of the documents. Her breath even stopped. After glancing at the documents, she looked into the eyes of the girl standing in front of her. At that moment, a different anger, hatred, and helplessness were clearly visible in her hazel eyes. Then she tried with all her strength to say something. After much effort, only one thing came out of her mouth. "Why me? I never did anything bad to you. I always considered you family. But why did you do this to me, Ragini? Tell me." Then looking at the boy in the white suit behind her, she said, "Varun, I considered you my love. I loved you with all my heart. You were going to marry me. You loved me. We promised each other to always be together, so why are you doing all this? You took everything from me. My family, my name, my place, everything is with you today. Yet, why did you do this to me? Hearing her words, the girl standing in front got angry, and she kicked the girl lying down hard, causing her to fall again. Then Rajini stepped forward and pressed her heel onto Sia's hand, saying, "Why did I do it? You want to know, right? So listen, I never took anything from you. It was all mine. That family, that wealth, that style, it was all mine. It was you who came in between. It was you who was about to take all this away from me, and Ragini would never let that happen. Your only mistake is that you are the real daughter of my parents, and I am not. And there is another reason for all this happening. It is that old man, because of whom I almost ended up on the streets. I even took care of him. Now it's your turn." Meanwhile, Siya, who was listening to her words, wanted to say something, but suddenly she felt a lot of pain in her stomach and throat. As soon as she opened her mouth, blood started flowing continuously from it. Seeing this, she looked at Ragini standing in front of her, who said with a wicked smile, "Maybe the sweet from my wedding didn't suit you, Siya." She understood that the sweet was poisoned, and slowly she lay down on the ground. But she did not sign the documents and closed her eyes. When Ragini saw that Siya was lying on the ground and her breath had stopped, she first felt very angry, because even in death Siya had not signed those documents. In her anger, Ragini kicked the unconscious Siya 4 or 5 times. Seeing this, Varun, the boy in the white suit, stepped forward and said, "Ragini, baby, calm down. She's dead, and anyway, our work is done. It doesn't matter whether she signs or not, so relax, he said, trying to calm her down. The girl also took a deep breath upon hearing him and calmed herself. Then, looking at the boy, she said, "You're right, Varun. And anyway, we will now enjoy our dear Sia's property." Then both of them laughed and got back into the car and drove away. Meanwhile, Siya, who was lying on the ground, half conscious, and her breaths were very slow, felt a lot of burning and pain throughout her body due to the poison. Tears were flowing from the corners of her eyes. She was staring up at the faint light coming from above. She didn't even know whether it was day or night. She was reflecting on her life so far. Then she said to herself, "Why did this happen to us? Do we deserve this? We have never hurt anyone? Then in our own family we were rejected. Our love betrayed us, and why am I so unfortunate?" Then looking up at the sky, she just thought, if I got a chance, I would change my life. I would make the lives of those who put me in this situation a hell. I would ruin everyone who ruined me. With anger and a desire for revenge in her heart, Siya took her last breath. Darkness began to envelop her eyes, and she sank into that darkness. As time passed, her lifeless body lay there, completely still in the dirt and dust. Siya still saw darkness in front of her eyes, but she felt a lot of pain in her head. The pain grew to such an extent that she had to reluctantly open her eyes. With a jolt, her eyes opened. Suddenly, due to the bright light, she closed her eyes again. After a while, adjusting her eyes to the light, Siya opened her eyes and began to look around. At that moment, she was in a hospital room. An oxygen mask was placed on her mouth, and there was a drip in her hands, one side containing blood and the other glucose. Siya couldn't understand what was happening. Had someone saved her? But with the kind of pain she was feeling, it seemed like she was dead. But suddenly her gaze fell on a large mirror. It was like a wall in that hospital ward. When Siya looked at herself in the mirror, she was taken aback. She quickly pulled out the needles from her hands, causing her a lot of pain. But ignoring that pain, she stood up from the bed and, with unsteady steps, walked to the mirror. In the mirror stood a thin, weak, yet beautiful girl of about 17 years. Her hazel eyes made her even more special. Her hair was slightly disheveled, but it gave her a different look. A bandage was wrapped around her head, yet her beauty was not hidden. Siya said to herself, "When I was killed, I was 26, 27 years old, but now I am back to being 17. It feels like that year." After thinking for a while, her eyes widened, and she said to herself, "Was what I just saw a dream? Or have I time traveled back 10 years? Then she placed her hand on the mirror, touching her reflection.